episode, you will discover the secret to designing a mastermind group, the different types of masterminds that are out there, the 6 pillars of launching and running a mastermind, and how to launch your own mastermind and do it well. My guest today is my dear friend, Jay Fiset. Welcome, Jay.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm just making sure we're on Facebook and everything's streaming and all those things. So the links I did work. So thank you for having me. I can't wait to talk all things masterminds.
I usually ask about where you are and how is the weather. We're both in Calgary and it's freaking snowing up here.
Oh,
Calgary is kind of like, as soon as we feel and even think that it's warm and it's kind of spring or summer, Mother Nature is like, you're not in Phoenix, and then it hits us with snow and rain.
I had a fantastic about 6.5 kilometer run the other day, and it's like, spring is here. I'm so happy. It lifts my spirits and all the rest. And I got up this morning, looked out the window, and it was like soul crushing. And I know that might sound stupid to those of you that don't have weather changes, but as I get older, like I love winter, but then this the hanging on winter is hard on me, is the honest God truth.
Absolutely. Let me do the proper introduction. My buddy Jay, and we're going to dive into a very interesting conversation. Jay inspires and educates audiences of coaches, experts, and entrepreneurs to add 6 figures plus to their bottom line by creating and leading their own unique mastermind groups. Jay is the founder of Mastermind Millions, a training organization that, with his partner Brad Hart, has supported over 10,000 coaches, authors, and entrepreneurs to position, launch, and lead their own mastermind groups. These mastermind groups increase engagement, application, community, and of course, profit. And so if you want to add 6 figures to your bottom line this year, stick around, listen or watch, and to reach out and dive in. So let's get into it. Jay, what is your story?
Oh boy.
Give us your mastermind story. I know you could go on for probably 3 hours.
Yeah, that's what happens when you get old. In a nutshell, I ran a personal development company in Calgary / Western Canada for the better part of about 30 years. In fact, that's where you and I met, my friend, many moons ago.
2008.
Yeah. And in that process, it was very clear that people had they would taste this transformation that they wanted in their lives and be inspired and excited. But then they'd go back to their life, and it's the gravity of the life that they had designed prior to the course, the beliefs, the structures, the home, the relationships, all of those pieces. The gravity of that life would often pull them back to where they were, except it actually hurt a little bit more because they had a glimpse of what was possible. And in that structure, when I took that company over in May of 1991, which gives you a small little snapshot of how old I am, it became clear to me, it's like, I'm not satisfied with that. Like, that is not okay. We are here to create real and lasting change, not to be flavor of the week or to get somebody rah motivated for a day and a half. Like, I really don't care about that. So what transpired, pretty simple and straightforward, was I went on the sort of hunt to creating a container that created the space and the support and the community for people to have time to grow into the changes that they had tasted. And fundamentally, those are mastermind groups. We called them creation circles. And soon enough, over a span of, let's call it a decade or so, we had positioned, launched, and led more mastermind groups than almost anyone on planet Earth that I was aware of at the time. Ours were primarily in the personal development field. And in that process, I got really inspired by this idea of, I want to do mastermind groups more for entrepreneurs, more for higher net worth individuals, more on the realm of creation instead of healing and coping and those sorts of things. So a dear friend of mine, Colin, and I launched an organization that did stunningly well with that high level group. I was this, for those of you who are smarter than I was at the time, you might think this is funny what I'm about to say, but at the time it was a little bit shocking. Is like, I discovered that, the high net worth individuals, they are exactly the same as the low net worth individuals. They have the same problems. They have the same concerns. They have the same issues. They have the same marriage difficulties. They have the same business difficulties. They have the same everything. It's just most of them are a little bit whinier and more self-righteous and entitled about the problem.
And probably a little more money in the bank.
And a little more money in the bank. Anyway, I'm being somewhat facetious about that. But as that evolved, and then I got into a little bit of digital marketing, what occurred was I was actually at a mastermind in the United States, listening to some people sort of whine, bitch and moan about their mastermind group. And it was clear to me that they hadn't set up the structure properly. They hadn't gotten commitment clearly. They hadn't done all of the things that we had learned how to do through this entire process. So I said to them, I have this on the shelf training that I haven't done anything with now for probably 8 years. But it's exactly the training that we use to support our mastermind leaders. And at that stage, again, we had launched, I don't know, I wish I'd have counted better, but it was probably 300 plus or minus masterminds. Like we did a lot. And if you want it, I'll just give it to you, see if it helps. So I give it to them and they're like, oh my God, where did this come from? It's like, well, my head, my heart, my team, my experience, my failures, my successes, that's where it came from. And they're like, well, you should do something with this. Now that led to a couple of experimental webinars that led to an opt-in page that I thought was one of the worst things in the entire universe. And it led to a brand that did not exist, which is now, we call it Mastermind to Millions, going from zero to $2.6 million US in 14 months. And we've sort of never looked back. So long and short of it, Masterminds have been a part of my business since the beginning of time. Since that time frame of launching Mastermind to Millions, we have done a series of live events. We have a program called the Launch Your Mastermind Bootcamp. We have supported people launching masterminds, everything from traditional Christian churches all the way to aerospace with some of the people that built the Mars rover and everything in between. So when folks say, it's like, have you ever heard of? It's like, I've yet to be stumped.
We kind of created it. Love it. That's a great story. And as gang, if you're watching or listening, stick around for this episode, as Jay is probably one of the smartest business guys that I've come across, and I've seen and worked with a lot of business owners. So
you might need to get out more, Mustafa.
No, in all seriousness, like you've got a good head on your shoulders and good heart, and like if and when you watch or listen to any of Jay's trainings, he will share everything, like to the point where you could he won't hold back. And we've got a mastermind training coming up on Monday, April the 8th. We're going to give you the link. Actually, let me put the link out there right now. That we're going to put out there, and where he's going to teach about how to create your own mastermind. Well, we're going to dive into it today and share some details. And if this resonates, then join him on Monday, April the 8th at 2 p.m. Mountain Time, and he will give you the rundown. So let's dive into it. James, what is a mastermind? For the 1,000th times that you probably answered that question this week.
Once or twice. Here's the core of this. And I would ask everyone before I even answer this question is just let go of what you think that it is, because much of what is marketed in today's entrepreneurial coaching training, intellectual property business is actually, for the most part, not really a mastermind. It's a high-end group training. It's a coaching program. It's this, it's that. In its purest sense, a mastermind is when two or more human beings get together and they openly and generously share their network, wisdom, resources, and experiences. And in that space of creation, it's a little bit like, going back to the Christian phrase of whenever two or more gather in my name, I am there. But what really transpires is that when we have a group of people that has a common intention, that is coming from that space of generosity, that wants to serve, support, and create with one another, there is this third mind, this third entity, this third creative force that could not be accessed, created in any other way than bringing people together with a vision and a purpose. So that's really what a mastermind is. It was the phrase was coined by Napoleon Hill. And sometimes it's easier to say what a mastermind is not. A mastermind is not a digital course. A mastermind is not a large program. A mastermind is not a guru at the front of the room teaching and telling. Those are not masterminds. A mastermind draws upon, again, the network resources, experiences, and wisdom of the people at the table, the people in the room, not the person at the front of the room, the people in the room, to solve problems, to see opportunities, to accelerate growth and development. And it is the people at the table that are, quite frankly, both the stars and the recipients of the idea of the mastermind. Make sense?
Absolutely. And then, so you talked about how there are different types of masterminds. What types are out there?
Well, there's 100 different types, but for the purposes of people starting here, let's draw the two like broadest categories we possibly can. And category one, and I started category one because category one is easier than category two. And by the way, here's a little hint. We will talk about this a lot in the training program next Monday. Is this your strategy to get your first mastermind up and running? Is very simple and straightforward. It is what is the easiest and what is the closest and what is the space where you already have influence and respect and you're known for something. That's where you start. Okay, always the easiest, because these things, quite honestly, can be a bit of work if not done well. So the first area is what we're going to call a client mastermind. And a client mastermind, fundamentally, and I don't want you to get all too confused about this, but a client mastermind simply does this. It leverages the fact that you have some knowledge, wisdom, experience, maybe a magic trick, a process, a piece of intellectual property, any of those sorts of things, that there's a group of people who have already been paying for access to you and that information in some way, shape, or form that want a more intimate experience. They want the hand holding and the we'll call it the behind the scenes strategy about how to make that work better. Okay. Now, this is one of the things about a client-facing mastermind. You already have the influence, you already have the positioning, you already have paying clients, all those sorts of things. That's an easy poof. Ta-da! We're there. Now, where that one gets difficult, by the way, is to make sure that it stays a mastermind and doesn't become just one more of your training programs. But that's exactly what we teach people how to do, how to structure it, how to put all those elements together. So that's think of it as client. Now, the next mastermind, which, by the way, you know, I shouldn't say most. I'll speak for myself. I really love these masterminds, but they are peer masterminds. And peer masterminds is when there's a group of human beings at the table that all would look around and go like, yeah, we'd go to dinner. Yeah. You know, like Mustafa and I are peers. I've been to his place for dinner. He's been to my place for a barbecue. Like, we're peers. So peer masterminds, I think, often have more juice, for lack of a better term. It's like, I would love to sit around the table with a bunch of people in this spot. And they are beautiful. Like I was blessed we did a blast off mastermind at my house last Friday, a group of human beings from all over North America that I went to bed that night with my heart utterly and completely full, and more business ideas than I could execute in the next 172 years. But I want to be clear about this. Peer masterminds are more difficult to fill for most, unless you have a long span of time, a high degree of influence, great quality relationships upon which to draw, where people will go, it's like, yeah, you know, Jay and I are peers, but I do know that he's done X, Y, Z in LMIP, and I do know that he has a network of people that I wouldn't necessarily get access to on my own. And I'm absolutely happy to pay and participate to sit at a table with him and the people that he deems worthy. If you're in that spot, peer masterminds are fantastic. But what I see happening far too often is people who don't have that influence and that foundation in place. Trying to launch a peer mastermind is difficult. So for most people listening, you're going to start at a client mastermind.
For most people, they need to start a client mastermind.
Yeah, and think of it this way: just where do I have the most influence? The higher the influence, the easier it is to get the mastermind up and running. And it's one of the reasons I'm just going to go a little sidebar to this as well for a brief moment. Masterminds are generally sold on relationship and influence. And it's one of the reasons why websites and big launches and those sorts of things don't necessarily work for filling masterminds. You could fill a mastermind from a live event because there's enough of a relationship. You can connect with the charm, the wisdom, the experience, all of those pieces. But it's very difficult to do digitally. It's very difficult to do off of a landing page.
And so just to be clear, a client mastermind, what you mean is you reach out to your clients and turn them into mastermind members.
Correct.
So the relationship is already there. There's not a ton of selling going on. You just say, hey, I've got 10 or 12 or 15 of you guys. Would you like to get together, share the ideas, and here's how it's going to run down. And it's a lot easier than converting, I guess, cold audience into
understatement of the universe. Yes.
Got it. All right. So how do people mess this whole process up and fail to launch their mastermind?
Okay.
Well, there's some of the biggest ways.
I'm glad that you added the fail to launch piece, because here's the honest goodness truth. There are 10,792 ways to screw up or F up running a mastermind. Like the nuance and the details of human relationships, of creating commitment, like there's a lot there. So it's one of the reasons why, number one, we run this thing called the Launch Your Mastermind Bootcamp. So you got support with that. And we do this thing called Mastermind Commitments Live, which is a live experience. There's a lot of ways to screw it up. But here's the good news. There's really only 2 ways in which a mastermind does not get launched. Okay, so depending upon your skills as a facilitator, as a marketer, all sorts of things, as a generalization, it's easier to launch a mastermind than it is to keep it running and have renewals. So here's the 2 reasons that masterminds fail to launch. Top of the list is this: each mastermind must have a promise. And that promise really fundamentally boils down to what will be different in my life? What will be different in my world? What will be different in my business if I participate in this mastermind for 6 months or 12 months or 2 years or whatever the case may be? That's the core of the promise. Now, here's a couple of things that you need to understand about the promise. Is that the promise is inversely related in importance. It's inversely related in importance to your influence and the depth of your relationships. So the more influential you are, the less significant the promise is in getting it up and running. And I'll give you an example. Lewis Howes. So a friend of mine, Christian Michelson, joined Lewis Howes' mastermind. I asked Christian, so what's the core promise of the mastermind? And guess what his response was?
No idea.
That was his response. Exactly. He had no idea. You got it right.
That's a good start.
Yeah, but let's be clear about this. The answer is I have no idea. And he just spent 6 figures on a mastermind.
To start it?
Yeah. No. To join it. To join his mastermind. The travel, the fee, all those sorts of things. But he didn't know what the promise was.
So he joined a mastermind, paid six figures, and he didn't know what he was getting.
He didn't know what the promise was.
Oh, wow.
And the reason being is because the leader was Lewis Howes. And Lewis Howes has become quite famous. Lewis Howes has a hell of a community. Lewis Howes has access that he does not have. Lewis Howes is somebody that he wanted to develop a relationship with. Lewis Howes had the influence and the connection and the depth of relationships that he was willing to pay for. So the less...
So there didn't even have to be a promise because the influence was there. There's like, I want to hang out with Jay. I'll pay whatever. We just want to hang out.
And that's what I mean by the inverse relationship. Is like tons of influence and relationship and access and all those sorts of things. They don't care too much about the promise. But if you're sort of new in this space, or it's like, geez, I haven't really leveraged influence in the way that I could have, or should have, or would have in my business, your promises are going to become more and more and more important. Make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So the first issue is promise. And if we have promise, here's the beautiful part about mastermind. You don't need a promise that appeals to 10,000 people. Hell, you don't need a promise that appeals to 500 people. You don't need a promise that appeals to 50 people. You need a promise that's going to appeal to 25 or 30 people. And then by the time you do the filtering, you'll have 10 or 12 people. It's like, that's what I want and need. Okay. That's the beautiful part about masterminds, is that we can go, and I don't know if any of you are tech
savvy.
Well, I was going to go the other direction. I was going to say tech resistant is probably more, as I get a little bit older, I'm getting more tech resistant. You and I went through that. I'm just like,
yeah, you're getting grumpy.
Yeah, I'm an old grumpy curmudgeon. It's like, give me one more goddamn link and another place to sign up, and I'd prefer to slit my wrist with a butter knife. Anyway, so let's imagine a bunch of old grumpy people like me. On a serious note, though, what we're talking about is that it's possible to run a mastermind business almost anti-tech, because you don't need that huge reach. You need maybe 20 or 30 people that you can have a conversation with and say, hey, does this match? So here's the truth. The first reason why masterminds don't launch is that there is a mismatch between the promise. This is what will be different in your life and in your world, and the positioning, the people you think should care about that promise.
So there's a mismatch between people and the promise.
Yes, exactly. And so it's shocking how often those things go wrong. And I'll give you just if this doesn't make sense to you folks, let me give you a brief example. Worked with a gentleman positioning a mastermind. He had a very early buyout in the many millions of dollars in the 80s. So that's back when money was actually worth something. So his many millions of dollars back in the 80s would probably be $500 million today. I'm exaggerating slightly, but you get my point. He was having trouble getting his next big win after his first big win. and decided to launch a mastermind that the fundamental premise of it was chapter 2. And it was for people who had early successes who hadn't been able to get up to the plate and hit another home run. By the way, doesn't that sound like a good idea? They've got good money. They are obviously smart enough that they've done it once. That, like, let's bring them together and let's actually serve and support them to get up to the plate for another, even a base hit would be good. Like, at first glance, that seems to make sense. Yes?
Yeah.
I thought it did, except it doesn't. And here's the honest to goodness truth about it. We wrestled with this for a while, and then we finally discovered this group of people has incredible self-judgment and anger and disappointment in self over not having another win yet in their life. And they do not want to come around and talk about it with a bunch of other losers who can't get a second hit either.
Oh, so they were avoiding the pain that they didn't want to face.
Exactly. And most of them have enough money to avoid indefinitely. But they don't want to go and they don't want to look in the mirror and they don't want to look around a table. A bunch of people say, hey, you got lucky once too, huh? Oh, you got lucky once too, huh?
And to be honest, that's the kind of shit that takes like 5 to 10 years to figure out. Like, it's not, and multiple 6 figures to expect, to spend on that and be like, I don't know why it's not working. I know they have a problem. I know they can help. I know by coming in here, they're going to fix their shit, but whatever I do is not working.
Exactly. Because the promise and the people we're talking to about it have a fundamental core mismatch, and therefore it'll never launch. So that is the number one problem why masterminds don't launch. Mismatch between the promise and the people that we're positioning it for. Here's number 2. Let's imagine that you get it exactly right. You have a perfect promise and you have a perfect positioning, but it's still not going anywhere. What then? What on earth is the problem then? And here's the answer. Is that the tribe goes, oh, good idea. Totally. That sort of reaches in and squeezes my heart. And then they look up at the person who's making the presentation and go, yeah, but you are not the leader of my tribe. You might have an intellectual understanding, but you haven't walked the path. You haven't bled the blood. You haven't created the results. You're a theory person, and I don't give a shit. So those are the 2 reasons. Mismatch from promise to positioning, and promise and positioning right, but the person trying to sell it isn't viewed, experienced, and seen as qualified or the leader of that tribe. And if you can address those 2 pieces, your mastermind will take off. Which is the reason why I say right at the beginning, you always go to the place that you have the most influence. That's where you start.
Love it. Which is, I think it's a key strategy there, to start with people you have influence in, and you are already established as an expert of some sort. And so if someone is not, I guess that would become the big question. If somebody is not established as an expert, how do they go about it? Do they just ignore this mastermind idea, or is there a way to?
I love that question, and we need 7 hours.
Is there like a 30-second? I know you don't have 30-second answers.
Mustafa has met me. So here's the long and the short of it, is that you get really, really clear about strategically building a network that will provide the foundation for the mastermind to take off. So we actually teach something called Fill Your Mastermind with Ease, which became nicknamed by our community Wine, Conversations, and Cash. And really what it is a hyper-targeted invitation to come have a little mini masterminding conversation with a group of people in a particular sphere that we think might be interested. And the purpose, by the way, is not to sell anything. The purpose is to become the hub of the wheel. The purpose is to make significant relationship deposits. The purpose is to build influence such that we can begin to connect with that world in a meaningful and significant manner. And there's a multitude of ways to tweak those events, but that works. That works really, really well.
Just so that we have an answer out there for the people that are watching, I think most people that have an expertise don't give themselves enough credit for the expertise that they have.
Mm-hmm.
And I think most people could write a small book or an ebook and kind of position themselves as an expert in their field once they're hopefully over that, that I'm not good enough kind of shit that they're dealing with. And then, that would, I think, help them to establish themselves as an expert and be like, hey, you can download my book for free or sell it on Amazon or give them a print or however. And then I think most people think they need a 300-page book where they could get away with a 50-page book and still be an expert and share their expertise. What's your take on that?
Well, I think it's a real paradox, actually, Mustafa, because without going into the whole long drawn out story, is that I think for most human beings, you're right. Those that have done their work and those sorts of things, it's like, they don't see it because it comes too easy, or they've dismissed it for some reason. And if you're in that spot, for the love of all things good in the world, write the ebook, make it, publish the manual, get on podcasts, publish your opinion, get on stages, like do everything possible for people to go, oh, he knows what he's talking about. Yeah. That's a cool magic trick. And I'd never thought of it in exactly that manner. Yahoo, go do that. And of course, the irony, and to me, some of the paradox, and again, this might just be old curmudgeon Jay. The irony and the paradox is we also have a bunch of people running around who scanned a book and a half and are now claiming expert status.
Yeah.
And that shit pisses me off, is the honest to goodness truth, because it often does more harm for folks than good. So, I ask, and this literally the second module of the Launch Your Mastermind Bootcamp. The first is perfect positioning, because if you don't get positioning right, nothing works. The next is become the leader that your tribe wants to follow, or personal evolution. And that personal evolution is always driven by self-awareness, by truth-telling, by honest evaluation, by bringing other people's perspectives in so that we can align, like, where are we really at? And like, I'm just going to give you an example of this. The freebie manual, the Mastermind Mentors manual that I shared with those people and saying, hey, I got this training. I didn't think, in all seriousness, that it was a really big deal. It was like, yeah, this is what it is. And the rave reviews that I got from it helped align. It's like, you mean not everybody knows this? Like, this seems pretty freaking basic. But the truth of the matter is that nobody knew it. Nobody put it together in a manual. And if they did put it together in a manual, nobody gave it away, for Christ's sake. Like, we literally had people emailing us saying, oh, I'm sorry, your system's broken because I went for the free download, but you sent me the actual course in the manual. And I just think you should know. And it's like, no, that is the freebie. And they're like, well, no. It's the 52-page. Yes, that's the freebie. So, that's a good example of just trying to align what the reality of something is.
Yeah. So speaking of the 52-page, Jay is sharing his 52-page Mastermind Mentors manual along with a 10-video training on Masterminds. Go to the link in the descriptions or in the chat, and you will get it. It's a free download, and he's literally giving you the whole thing. Go and download it and run with it.
Yeah, if you download that, and you will also get access to 10 videos that Brad and I talked about our different approaches to masterminds, some of the magic tricks that we've used in that process, some of the results and inspirational stories. Those 10 videos are worth their weight in gold in just expanding your context of what might be possible. So do that. And just on that page, when you're there, you will also see that there is an event coming up in Phoenix, Arizona, May 30th to June 2nd. And if you want live in-person support and community around this process, we'd love to have you there too.
Love it. Okay, beauty. I think I did that event back in
when we were 12.
Yeah. I think that was the first time that you ran that event in Phoenix, right? 2016, 17 or something. Probably the first time you did it.
Yeah, it would be close to that. I think, and I wouldn't swear to this, but I think the first time was Vegas and then Phoenix. So, but it was right at the beginning.
In the first Phoenix event.
Yeah.
Because you've done it in Phoenix a few times, right?
We've done Phoenix a few times. We've done San Diego. We've done Las Vegas. We've done, I think those are the places.
Yeah. It's a great event. Let me give you my 30-second rundown on Jay's events. Jay shares from the heart, and he shares everything. You will literally be supported all the way. He will answer questions. There's going to be hot seats. There's typically coaching sessions where you could get help. There is a ton of awesome, amazing, beautiful people out there that are there to support and help in each other. You will probably get business. You'll find affiliate partners, referral partners. I can't say enough about it. So if it's coming up, if Jay has an event, try to attend. Yeah.
It's funny you say the JV partners, because like a bunch of people in our world sort of got their start in this space with and through the Mastermind to Millions Live. Like our friend Dove Gordon flew from Israel. Aman and Brady, who were business partners for the better part of a decade, met at Mastermind to Millions Live. And I could go on and on and on, but the events are damn spectacular. Is the on it?
Yeah.
In all Canadian humility.
Absolutely. No, they're good. I'm not exaggerating. They are good events, good training, good everything. So what is the secret to designing a good mastermind group? Do we have 7 hours?
my smart ass answer is that's why you come to Mastermind to Millions Live, because it takes 3.5 days to tell you. But I'll give you the short version. Write these 4 letters down, and then I'm going to explain them as quickly as I can, given the time frame we have. PPSP. Okay, PPSP. Mm-hmm. And I will break each of those down. And before I do that, I want to give you one example of what's a terrible way to design a mastermind and to launch a mastermind. And I can't tell you how many times I have heard this, and I get snarkier and snarkier over time, which is like, hey, I'd like to design a $25,000 mastermind. How do I do that? And my response has simply become this, is that if you have to ask the question, you're not qualified to design a $25,000 mastermind. You got the cart in front of the horse. That is not how this goes. So let's start at the beginning, which is PPSP. P is the promise. What is the promise? What will be different in somebody's life? What will actually transform for them? How will they be, do, and have differently in their life, in their world, in their business, in their bedroom, in their bank account, in their everywhere? What is the promise? And it must be, please hear this. This is so important. It must be framed in the language and the pain of the people that you are positioning it for. So I'll give you a silly little example that made us well over $1 million. So maybe pay attention. We had a mastermind called Vita. Now, at first glance, Vita, who gives a shit, right? Except Vita was aimed at a bunch of alpha male entrepreneurs that had net worth somewhere between $5 and $15 million, who had built and designed businesses and lives, sort of where it was like a pyramid balanced on their head, except facing down with the point. It was like they were significant. They were self-made. The world revolved around them. And as such, they ended up with a life, a business, and money, except they didn't have what they really wanted. So Vita is Latin for life. And when we would talk about it, we would say to them, it's like, listen, this group is for the man who has everything, except for the one thing he wants and needs most, which is a life.
A life.
Yes. And that, by the way, would speak to the internal dialogue that our entrepreneurs would have when their family was at the lake house in Kelowna, water skiing all summer long, and they're still at the office Monday through Friday in Calgary. And when we'd say that, and knowing that those are some of the experiences, that's a little bit like just reaching into their chest, grabbing their heart, and just squeezing it. That's the kind of promise we're talking about. Okay.
I guess to create a promise, you should, correct me if I'm wrong, you should be able to see and notice things in people and be like, here's a problem that I've seen and noticed, and I'm going to address it with my mastermind. Yes.
I'll give you another example, because Vita is a little bit highbrow in terms of who we were targeting. Here's a simple one for our, we had a program called LEAD, Accelerate Your Influence and Your Income. That was a mastermind group and training group designed to help people be seen as leaders so they could launch their mastermind, so they could accelerate their influence and their income. It's exactly the promise. It's like, wow, I got to get out in front of this. I got to wave my flag. I got to be seen as a leader. Nobody's going to actually come do this. And if I do it well, poof, money, income, influence. Ta-da! Anyway, so that's the kind of promise we're talking about. Now, the next piece is, now who am I positioning this for? And this is where, the advantage of a client-facing mastermind is so significant, because you get to just look at, who are my favorite clients? Who actually does the work that I ask them to do? Who has the results that are sailing, and with a little bit of the secret sauce, with a little bit of connecting dots, with a little bit of intention and influence and intervention, we can help them explode. Poof. That's it. So we position it exactly for the people that the promise is most significant for. And honest to goodness, my friends, please, for the love of all things good in the world, this is not where you get all copyrighty, markety, all that. That's not what this is. This is, if I could have a conversation with the right person, I know what their problem is, I know what they're struggling with, I know what their difficulties are, I know what all those sorts of things are, and this group is designed to solve that. This should be a simple hell yes. As long as, by the way,
Very clear.
You are seen as the leader of that tribe. So those are the first pieces, okay? So you're going to have a promise and you're going to have positioning that are aligned and that you are seen as the leader in that tribe, that you have the influence to pull this off. Now, that's P and P. Next is S. S stands for structure. And, well, structure is interesting. In this world, there's an inordinate number of what I'm going to call copycat masterminds. And here's what I mean by a copycat mastermind. It's where somebody joins a program, might be called a mastermind, and by the way, it may or may not be a mastermind, but they join a program, they go and they show up to the first event, and they sit down and they look around, and it's like, Jesus, Murphy, there's 20 of us, and we all paid $25,000. Huh, $500,000 mastermind. I'm going to start a mastermind. I'm going to do that. And then they look and they watch and they see what their mentor, what their guru, what their person did. It's like, well, geez, so we have two retreats. We have, are you still there? Or,
I'm here. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I hit something and you disappeared. Let me just see if I can find my way back.
I'm here and I could see you.
There we go. All right. My elbow hit my mouse pad and it was like, poof, you were gone.
That happens.
So it's like, hey, I'm going to do this. So there's 2 retreats. There's a Zoom call. There's, dance on your left leg Thursday. And they take the model that their mentor had and just copy and paste it without any, please hear this. And it just drives me batshit crazy, without any true attention or energy or details to considering, does that structure fulfill the promise that I set? And over and over and over again, I'm reviewing people's processes. And it's like, well, where'd you come up with this structure? And he goes, well, my friend Bob. It's like, well, tell me what it has to do with what your promise is. I don't really know. So the structure, here's the idea around the structure. What is the structure that will deliver that promise 10 times over? What is the structure that will deliver that promise 10 times over? And please hear this. You need everything that is required to fulfill that promise. And you don't need one damn thing that isn't directly related to the promise. Kill it, let it go, float it away, done. And when those things are perfectly aligned, this incredible thing happens, is that like a choir of angel from God comes down and goes, oh, that's worth $25,000. Oh. And then, because when those 3 things are done and it's aligned, it tells you what the price is. It tells you who's willing to pay it. It tells you what they have been paying. It tells you what the value is in the marketplace. And that, my friends, is how you begin to build a $25,000 mastermind. We don't start with that question. We start with the promise. We start with the positioning. We start with the structure. Then we go, if we solve that problem, would people feel like if they paid $25,000 that they got 10 times the value? And if the answer to that is hell yes, great. You take it to the market and have the market speak.
So the last P is price.
Last P is price.
So it was the promise, the position, the structure, and the price. Love it.
In that order, always.
Why do people call courses and training programs masterminds, and why should they not call them masterminds?
They shouldn't, because old curmudgeon Jay is going to come kick their ass. One of the best videos I ever did, like on YouTube, in terms of shares and those sorts of things, was something that it was like, no, that's not a mastermind.
What not to do?
Here's what I think happened. I mean, all teasing aside, I think what happened was that well done and well executed masterminds were commanding a premium price in the entrepreneurial marketplace. And then people wanted to have premium priced programs. So calling it a mastermind seemed to help elevate its perception in the marketplace. So what we ended up with is a bunch of high-end coaching programs masquerading as masterminds. Now, here's the honest to goodness truth, by the way, and I'm going to say something that if this doesn't make sense to you, come to the training that I'm doing on Tuesday. Come to Mastermind Trainings Live. Pardon me, Monday. Thank you. And I'll explain it. A mastermind doesn't need to be all mastermind. Okay.
What does that mean?
Sorry, go ahead.
What does that mean?
I'm getting there. It doesn't have to be all mastermind. But here's the truth of the matter is that you can't have a high-end coaching program called a mastermind if it doesn't have mastermind. So I'm going to share one little tip and trick, by the way. The details of this are in the 10 video training that you'll get when you go get the Mastermind Mentors Manual. But think of it, if you have a digital program, you have some intellectual property, or you wrote the book that Mustafa was suggesting, if you turn that book into a course and training program that, let's say, runs for 4 months, they learn the content, they understand what it is, all those sorts of things, ta-da. Then you add what we'll call a practicum or case study component, where all the people who are in the program have to go and actually create something with that content and bring it back to the group and teach it. This is how you do it. This is what I did wrong. This is what I learned. This is what I can accelerate in your process, all the rest of it. Notice the sharing of network wisdom, resources, and experiences is now starting. And then once everyone has gone through all of those pieces, then at the end of it, when we actually know what the hell we're talking about, we have a lived experience, we have built a bunch of the actual things that we're talking about, then we go into the masterminding piece where it's like, hey, I saw that you did this one thing really, really well. And here's a little magic trick I can share with you that really helped me. And they can mastermind it. So you can actually turn a digital course or a program that might be $400 or $1,000 or $2,000 into a one-year mastermind for $10,000 or $15,000. If we say, let's do the course so we know what the hell we're talking about. Let's actually build it. So this is not one of those things that I paid for the course, but I didn't really do it. And then we're going to mastermind and make sure that every single person in the course and the program gets the result. That would be a way in which we can adapt it. And to me, in my world, we can call that a mastermind that has a digital training component. Versus what most people do is like, we have a digital training or we have a high level coaching program. We're just going to call it a mastermind because we can charge more, which is bullshit in my humble opinion.
Interesting. So if you have a course, that's a great idea. I think grabbing a course that you already done and developed and go more in depth and make sure people get shit done. Because most courses people sign up and they never go through it because doing things alone and reading and learning and applying is never fun. But if you have an accountability group and somebody that's holding your hand, showing you can ask questions and the rest of it, it becomes more fun and more likely to execute, I guess.
100%. And the result gets built.
Absolutely. So how do we go about launching the mastermind and do it well without, making all these dumb mistakes and smart ass ways of approaching this whole thing?
Well, I mean, here's, the last, my dear wife and I were having a long conversation today about changing and evolving and all those pieces. And I can say this with great alignment, truth, and pride, which is in the last 4 years, I've done better at identifying the support that I need, paying for it, using it, accepting it, and integrating and applying it. And that is in every aspect of my life, not just entrepreneurial pieces. And the short answer to this is get support. And, and to be clear, get support. Come to the training on Monday. Come to Mastermind Millions Live. Take the Launch Your Mastermind Bootcamp. Get all of the contracts, the filters, the application, like all of that shit's just done. And I put my hand up because I have been guilty of this for far too long in my life, and a part of me is embarrassed by it, and a part of me has this shit. If it was my experience, I know it's most others, which is I had this belief that I had to figure it out, and only if I figured it out did it have merit or value. And I valued what I'm going to call the pain or the struggle or the I will find my own way. In fact, there's a story I once told about the machete that was like cut, like attached to my hand. And it was my job to like hack the jungle so I could get through it, because that's where the value in the work is doing all this stuff. And all the while I'm doing that is like, there's a highway 30 feet to the right where I can hear people zooming back and forth, getting the result. And I'm still working really, really hard at it.
I have to figure this out on my own.
Yes, exactly. It's only then does it count. Only then am I smart enough. Only then did I earn it. Only then do I deserve it. Only then, got all that bullshit. It's the best way I can put it.
I think we all do that. It's like a natural tendency.
Particularly if we're drawn to entrepreneurship. Like there's that thing about we got to make our own way. So, I think the short answer to this is if these statements of I'm working too hard for too little, if that resonates, go get help. If you have any of that, if I want it done right, I better do it myself, go get support.
Love it.
If it's I will figure it out and that's where the value is, go get support. Because all of those are self-righteous, limiting, and slowing down beliefs. And I would invite you to replace it with this idea, which is simply this. I am smart enough to pay and invest to get the result that I need. And here's the honest to goodness truth. Most entrepreneurs are shitty investors. We're cool creators. We're dedicated workhorses, but we're not very good investors. And if any of those things resonate with you, the answer is you go get support. Now, where you get support, honest to goodness, big picture, doesn't much matter to me. If it happens to be in the mastermind world we're talking about, there are a very small number of people who can do it. I know one of them. But if you need accounting help, go get help. If you need marketing help, talk to Mustafa. If you need mastermind help, I'll see you on Monday.
Pretty much. So tell us about what's happening on Monday with this training.
Okay. Monday on the training, I'm going to go through what we call the 6 pillars of how to position, launch, and lead your mastermind. Those are the 6 pillars that the Launch Your Mastermind Bootcamp is built around. Those are the 6 pillars that the Mastermind to Millions Live is built upon. We're going to share a variety of tools and resources, including what we call the PPSP worksheet, because there's actually a whole nother level to the PPSP worksheet that I will share with you. And my goal would be really 3 things. 1, for you to actually be clear, given your business model, given your goals, is a mastermind right for you? And the truth of the matter is it might be, and it might not. And I'm unattached to whatever it is. You just need to make an intelligent decision based upon that process. And I'll give you a framework to say, yes, I'm doing it, or no, I'm not doing it, or I need more information to make the right choice. We'll take care of you there. I'm unattached to what that choice is. So that's the first thing. Then the next thing is, if I am going to launch a mastermind, where is my highest influence and where is my greatest leverage and what is my fastest and most direct result or fastest and most direct route? And that's where we'll use a couple of worksheets and a couple of tools that I will share with you, and you will actually work your way through that entire process. And then the third part is that I will make an invitation. And that invitation is, if this is right for you, then come join me in the Launch Your Mastermind Bootcamp, where I will actually coach you and hold your hand through a digital program with all of the contracts, all of the resources, all of the training, all of the applications, all of the everything that you need under the damn sun. There's like 7 different manuals in that process. The Mastermind Mentors Manual is just one example of, there's like 6 others. And you'll get all those things, and you will get my coaching every 2 weeks and connecting the dots to make sure it actually happens. And we will even throw in a ticket to the Mastermind to Millions Live, happening at the end of May, beginning of June in Phoenix. So, and to be clear, it is, it's about the best offer we've ever made in the entire universe for that bundle of things, because we've never really bundled all those things together in that manner before.
So, and I'm thinking, compared to what you used to deliver in Mastermind Millions Live, it has evolved and improved quite a bit.
Well, and I want to give a shout out to my dear friend and brother and business partner in this. His name's Brad Hart. He's a young digital marketing whippersnapper who isn't as much of a curmudgeon as I am. and the beauty of us working together is that I have I have an approach that works so well if you have a little bit of influence and what we're going to call latent demand. That's sort of my bailiwick. I can wave my magic wand and you have mastermind, is the honest God truth of it. But there's lots of folks who are starting earlier in their life cycle, earlier in their entrepreneurial career, that actually require a slightly different approach. And Brad he wrote a book called The 8-Minute Mastermind, which is spectacular. I highly recommend it. And he has an approach for people who are building their influence so that we can build a mastermind in a series of one-on-one calls and doing a market research process that is second to none. And the two of us together is that you get to pick and choose, quite frankly, the best of both worlds based on your entrepreneurial experience, based upon your existing influence, and based upon your clarity of your promise. And then it's like being at the buffet. It's like, I'm going to do Jay's WCC. When those are done, I'm going to cherry pick a handful of individual one-on-one conversations so I can get the right people in the room, and I'm going to get this mastermind up and running quickly.
Nice. Kang, this running a mastermind idea, Jay, do you mind if I share my perspective on masterminds? So a lot of businesses do struggle with finding new revenue resources, and they want more customers, and what they do is to spend more money in lead generation. With this mastermind idea, is like you could go back to your existing or past customers and serve them on a new level with respect or relevant to what you've been doing for them, and the sale is a lot easier. And you just reach out and like Jay said earlier, you only need 10 or 12 people to run a healthy multiple 6-figure, hell, even maybe a 7-figure mastermind, and just enjoy a new revenue stream that's just sitting there. You're not tapping into it. And just by joining Jay's training, he will show you the ropes and show you how it's done.
So if I can just give an example of that, this whole idea of because I think sometimes people roll their eyes like, oh, add 6 figures. When the statistics in North America is that it's like 63% of businesses don't even make more than 6 figures. And we're saying you can add it, and people are like, yeah. Anyway, but here's a great example. So my dear wife and I are certified psychedelic guides. We've been supporting couples in a variety of ways for a couple of years that have been really beautiful and transformational. And my wife came up with this idea. It's like, what if we were to use a little bit of this visioning, opening medicine for entrepreneurs? It's like, that's kind of an interesting, weird idea. But we teach in our programs to always beta test things. Like we don't need to invent the wheel. Let's get an idea out. Let's beta test something and let's experience it. And then let's see what's going to transpire. Let the market speak. Just let the market speak. So here's just a great example of how easy, well, in this case, it's 5 figures. Yeah, in this case, it's 5 figures. But we had the idea. We spent approximately 2 hours on a registration page. I spent about half a day texting people saying, this is what we're doing. I'd love to invite you to the beta test of this if you're game and if you're open. It's $1,000 and big picture, no promises, but we want your feedback and we want you to play and all those sorts of things. So a couple hours on a website, about 4 hours on sending emails, messages back and forth. 12 people in the room at $1,000 a head. Friday from 10 in the morning till 6 at night with a nice dinner that happened that evening. $12,000 for, let's call it 2 days work.
Not too shabby.
And here's the thing about beta testing. Any wild guesses out of the 12, how many have returned for the next one?
Half of them?
10. And the only two have not yet signed up. We'll come to another one. The date didn't work. They're speaking on stages, do another shit.
Oh, wow. And then the next one is the regular price is what, 5K or something like that?
No, I just doubled it because so one of the things about beta testing is I genuinely believe that it's usually 3 times, maybe 5 times before all the edges are really knocked off. Well, what we did for this one was if you are here, if you're in the first one and you do it before X date, you can have it for the same price. So I think almost all of those folks are in at the $1,000 again. And then the price went to $1,500 that will get filled by a couple of outside folks.
I'm guessing those guys are going to bring people in and let their friends know and all that jazz.
We've had a couple of referrals who pay the higher rate. And we have a couple of people who've been outside in our other communities in terms of psychedelic coaches and trainers and all of those sorts of things that are also going to come and attend. And but so now where are we at in terms of, because everybody renewed, we're at 22,000 plus or minus for a beta test, and we're still at less than 2 days work.
Yep.
So it doesn't have to be this long thing with a monthly call and a this and a that. You can do one-offs, and you can make great money at one-offs. You can do 6 figures at one-offs, like our JVology Summit is another example. Anyway, I want people to just understand that if the promise and the positioning lines up, you can do a 1 day that makes 5 figures, simple, clean, and easy. You can do a 1 day that makes 6 figures. Like, there's a lot of ways to go about this, and we'll share all of them.
Love it. Love it. All right. So a couple of last questions, personal questions, and we're going to wrap this up. What's a new thing that you've tried recently?
On that blast off mastermind, a psychedelic, a low dose psychedelic mastermind for entrepreneurs. That was one of the most meaningful things I've done in decades.
Love it. Give me 2 good books that you've read in the past couple of years that you would recommend.
Oh, goodness. Well, literally it's on my desk. So one is called Mastering Microdosing, written by a gentleman named Paul F. Austin. And he has a tremendous podcast and a bunch of work that has been like really, really, really meaningful. And then we've been reading a lot around sexuality and connection and all those sorts of things. And we're not done this one, but it's called Sex at Dawn. And it's about the history of relationships and the contextual framing of how property became this thing that led to marriage, that led to societal conventions, that it really shines a light on the contextual framework of relationships, ownership, property, sexuality, like all of these elements where, oftentimes we just look at, oh, this is the way this is. But the contextual frame of how we got there has been utterly fascinating. So Sex at Dawn is a really fascinating book. Love it.
What's one advice that made a big impact on life or business for you?
Well, this isn't new. This isn't old. This is new. And I've been working with a woman who is very talented internal family systems coach, and she's freaking brilliant. And
talented what again?
It's called IFS. It's a therapy and coaching model that is called Internal Family Systems. And by the way, I would add that as another book called No Bad Parts. Is a brilliant, brilliant book that I highly recommend, as well as The Body Keeps the Score. Anyway, I've been reading a lot lately. But she said something to me that has really stuck with me, and that we are working on applying. I have always been fast. I speak fast. I work fast. I develop fast. I roll shit out fast. I beta test fast. Fast. And in my world, fast equal good. Right, wrong, or otherwise. And we were having a conversation. And one of the things that she said to me was a mentor of hers said this, and she was, by the way, trying to fast track a master's degree, and was really pushing hard and was having a hard time and all the rest of it. And one of her mentors pulled her aside and just said, listen, I've always known that this is true for me, and maybe it's true for you, which is speed hides need. And if we can actually slow down long enough to hang out and accept and be where we are, we can get those needs addressed in a more healthy, direct, and meaningful manner. So the current bit of advice I'm leaning into is, how do I slow down? How do I be more present? How do I take on less? How do I be
more aware, I guess?
How do I be more here? Yes, be more aware, be more here.
Love it. Jay, is there anything you'd like to add that we didn't get a chance to talk about?
No, I appreciate you, brother, and thank you for calling and asking this. And it makes all of the downloads and links and clicking and finding and all those sorts of things worthwhile when I get to connect with you.
Absolutely. Likewise. Thank you for sharing all the wisdom. Gang, if you're watching or listening, the link for the upcoming training on Masterminds, you're running a webinar on Monday, coming April 8th.
Correct.
And so do attend that. We're going to put the link in the comments and in the chat of the show as well. It is in the descriptions, and this is something you don't want to miss. You got an upcoming training coming up on Monday, and then there's going to be a boot camp. Then you got a live in-person training in Phoenix end of May, which is all worth attending. And I already have a couple of people that I'm going to send your way for various reasons. So
thank you, brother.
And that's going to be it.
All right.
A good time well spent, and money well spent. Thank you for joining us. Thanks, Jay. Thank you, gang. You've been listening to Simple Marketing Podcast, and we'll see you on our next episode.